Hello everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day regardless of what's going on with Bitcoin. I know it sucks, but we'll get through this as we always do. But I want to let you know that we're not in dire straits, but also we want to kind of look abstractly at everything. Okay, so being a good trader isn't taking a position or a side. That's not what you do. You can feel more so bullish or bearish in the overall sense of things, but at this point we're kind of in that middle ground. We don't truly know. There's no definitive direction any longer, and we need to kind of reestablish that, but more importantly, look at best and worst case scenarios so we can look at the whole thing without being biased, because again, being biased is emotional. Being emotional is the path to the dark side for being a trader. Again, just something to kind of think about there. And keep an open mind when you look at charts, especially ones that aren't moving the way that you want to. You got to kind of go back and look at them to make sure that you're on you got to define what side of the tracks you want to be on. At this point, it does look like there's a shift bearishly, but once again, we'll identify that as far as how long that could continue, key level supports, etc. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so if you're new to the channel, I hope you can learn something here today. CryptoCache.tech is the website, link in the description below, and let me know if you want to become a better trader. I have a Signal group, trading community, and trading academy. Really cool stuff there. So thanks again to all my current community members for obviously dealing with this scenario here. It's quite all right. We'll get through it. That being said, all right, so taking a look here at Bitcoin, let's go ahead and kind of acknowledge, well, some of the obvious. We lost the trend line. So this trend line is obviously no longer applicable. Okay, we can go ahead and remove that. And what that just basically tells us is that breaking 48,000 or 47.5, this key level resistance essentially, is in the cards, but I think it's a further consideration. The likelihood of the price just shooting right back up through there is pretty low, but once again, we have more volume at that price point, so the likelihood, of course, breaking it when it does get back up there is higher. It's just probably not going to happen right away based on the bearish divergence we're seeing here so far in the last 24 hours. Again, stranger things can happen. You can see reversals happen all the time in crypto. In fact, we'll probably see 46,000 tested sooner than later. But between now and then, we got to be realistic in the fact that we did lose the support level of 44,500, at least tentatively. The day hasn't closed yet, but that's what it looks like it wants to do. And we've obviously lost 46,000 as that range support. So this support channel essentially is, I wouldn't say null and void, but it's not really all that. It's more so considered resistance now than it is a support, because we obviously lost that level. Okay. Again, the day hasn't closed yet, so we can't come to any brash decisions. We could literally see complete reversal today. I think it's less likely, but if I'm not mistaken, there is some news today, of course, too, and that's causing that happening. So again, myriad of things, but we got to be realistic in the sense that this could continue. And let's go ahead and find out and look at some big picture, I guess worst case scenario, and kind of go from there. First of all, let's draw this trend line back up here again, kind of give us an idea and perspective of roughly where we're at, because we had this trend line here, minus this one day there, came down and ramped right back up. We've basically been trending in the process of 35,000, 37,000, then 38,000, and then it didn't turn around from there. We're expecting 39,000 at the time to get tested, but since it didn't, it continued all the way up to about 48. That being said, if we follow this trend line here, essentially, we can go with the sentiment of the fact that 40,000, if the price were to drop, just say today and tomorrow, more consistently, and have a very significant leg down, another 10% or so, we could see 40,000 be the next floor. Again, could be. I don't think there's any guarantees there by any stretch of the imagination, but again, trend lines, until they're broken, are essentially something we need to kind of acknowledge, which is what we've done previously. But now that it's broken, we're reevaluating things, right? So looking at this here, of course, the price drops today or tomorrow, then 40,000. But obviously, if it takes, just say a couple of weeks to get there, we could see 41/42 as the next potential retest of that trend line. Again, this is just a worst case potential scenario. I don't think that's as realistic, because we have the 50-day SMA working its way up. That's really close to about 42,000. We got this Fibonacci retracement line at about 43 as well. Again, I'm speaking in round numbers here, but those are pretty close approximates. 42 and 43 should essentially hold, especially the fact that we have this tentative support kind of right in the middle of that range there, where the price could not pass that resistance type of level at 42,200, if you remember that from before, and that could work as a support level now. All right, again, that's pending we see a close under 44,500 or 44,300, right in that range today, which is still very realistic again. So worst case scenario, I do feel as if we shouldn't see much lower than 42,200, and then perhaps even lower than that as a worst case, the trend line to hold, potentially even a wick lower, but 40,000, which should be a one-day candlestick close. Right in that range, that's generally what we're trending towards. Okay, again, we're still in this ascending pattern. That is still more of a bullish outlook that is bearish. I think we'd be bearish, sure, if we break below 40,000. I think a $30,000 price tag, so to speak, on Bitcoin, again, anything in the 30s, it could even be 39,000. That should be a shift in momentum overall at that point. Between now and then, the sky is not falling. This is very standard behavior, and these corrections do happen. Okay. So not the end of the world. But truth be told, 48,000 is a very strong resistance. We got to acknowledge that, and we could eventually see that tested again, but in the immediate future, perhaps not. Okay. All right, so that's just kind of where we're at there for the moment. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some other stuff as well and kind of see what's going on. We are essentially holding at 50 on the RSI. This is a pretty important thing. If we can hold above 50 on the RSI, I'm going to feel more secure in Bitcoin's direction sideways or up from here. So I think it's going to be important to be able to hold 50 on the RSI, because traditionally speaking, when we drop below 50, you can see there's a decent amount of bearish divergence that occurs when that happens. Now lately it's been kind of up and down. There's a lot of manipulation that occurred in this time frame here, so that's kind of not the best data to extract. But generally speaking, when you're above 50 on the RSI, especially on the one day, you have a tendency of staying more bullish. And if it's the inverse, it's more bearish. Okay. So again, not to say we break below 50 and if the sky is falling and we're over, but it's going to be disadvantageous if we see that. Okay. For now, it's holding, and I think that's something that we need to kind of pay attention to. All right. You can also acknowledge the fact that we have a bearish divergence here on the MACD. To me, again, personally, one-day candlesticks, one-day chart, MACD isn't necessarily the biggest thing. I don't think it tells you the most, but it does tell us there's a shift in momentum bearish, and we cannot overlook that. We have to acknowledge the fact that there is a bearish shift in momentum in the short term, at the very least, that's going to potentially push the price action down lower. Now, if it continues to slowly progress sideways and down, that'd be perfectly fine. We can maintain 50 on the RSI and get the price to kind of consolidate closer to one of the previous resistance levels, new support. That's what we're hoping for. 42,200 seems like a likely candidate, and so does, again, 43,000 here is a close round number based on Fibonacci retracement. All right, so taking a look here, let's go ahead and remove some of these numbers here just to kind of clear the chart a little bit. And what we're looking at, of course, on the 4-hour here, and this is another thing that kind of coincides with that little range here, so to speak, between 42,200 and 43,000. We've got the 200-day SMA working its way up. 200-day SMA on the 4-hour is fairly consistent in a lot of ways. It does help us understand that could be a potential support level. So we do have a decent amount of support in this channel here so far, again with that 50 trailing behind on the 1 day as well. So generally speaking, we're not looking terrible by any stretch, but the truth is the price wants to come down right now, and there's some profits being taken right now. Okay. So that being said, 4-hour doesn't look terrible, but it does tell us that we should expect a turnaround potentially soon based on the actual RSI here. And what I mean by that is the relative strength index on the 4-hour time frame is extremely overextended. Anytime we've seen it hit 30 on the RSI, the likelihood of it pulling back up is higher. Now granted, it did hit 30 here, and it continued to progress lower, so there's no guarantees on that, right? But for the most part, you see the price come down to 30. It's considered to be extremely oversold, and it's considered basically a good value. A lot of people will probably consider right now, at the price point of 43,700, a pretty good value. So we got to understand the fact of the matter is that with the price being pushed down as hard as it has, roughly 8% in the last 24 hours, we can expect the price to potentially bounce back to try to come up and test 46. I think 46,000 would be the most immediate target. So hypothetically, you take entry at this point, 44,500 and right around 46,000 would be two decent profit targets. Again, different strokes for different folks, depends on what you want to do, but generally speaking, we should expect a slight turnaround, at least a recovery of some sort. It doesn't necessarily have to break its most recent high of 46,700, but we could literally see the price come back up here for a short while, at the very least, calm down on the RSI. Okay. So again, getting down there, so to speak, on the 4-hour. One last thing to acknowledge here, of course, and it's pretty obvious, but we do have, of course, a bearish divergence. This could last for some time. We don't truly know how long, but once again, with that RSI kind of screaming that it's hitting its lowest point or a very low point, we're obviously overextended in the downward direction. Speaking of overextension, let's take a look at TD sequential and kind of see here. We can see we are already down to an 8. Okay, so 8 times 4, we've had that much time in the downward direction here essentially, and that is too much. Okay, therefore we could expect and should expect a 9 to come to fruition here, because even though, even if it comes up, it'll still give us a 9. So truth be told, we're overextended at this point. We're very, very close to it, and that's another reason why we should expect a turnaround. Because once again, when you hit a 9 on TD sequential, more specifically on the 4-hour, it's less likely to see a continuation in that direction without consolidation. So at the very least, if there's any consolation here, we should go sideways and then down again if it were to, all right? But once again, the likelihood of it pulling back and bouncing up from here, I think, is a little higher than it would be the probability of the price coming down. Okay. Again, just basing off of the overall sentiment, everything, the way that everything looks, it feels like we're going to see a bit of a recovery. Here's another thing to acknowledge as well. We previously hit an 8, got a slight reset, now we're down to a 9. So we've hit an 8 on TD sequential on the 4-hour and a 9 on TD sequential on the 1-hour. You put those two things in tandem, we should expect some kind of pullback, and the likelihood of the price going lower is low. Okay, so I don't think we should expect to see 43,000 tested in the immediate future, but I do feel like we should expect to see the price recover at the very most to 46,000. But we got to understand 46,000 is now the resistance level, and that'll probably be a rejection point initially. Once again, we need to build more volume in the base between 45,000 and 46,000, or 44.5 and 46, to be able to get that stable foundation. But just know we're extremely overextended here on the 1-hour plus the 4-hour. So potential to the downside is pretty low at this point. Okay, taking a look next at, let's go ahead and take a look at the Ichimoku cloud. For obvious reasons, it tells us we want to keep our short position open if you have one, and to not even bother closing that. So really kind of redundant in that sense. It doesn't help us much if you're planning to take a long position, but it does tell us that, of course, the bears are playing right now, and they're having a pretty good time. So again, big picture, that's kind of where we're at. So long story short on all of this, I feel as if we have a strong resistance now at 46,000. That's more likely than not going to be a strong resistance level. It was previously a support, at least tentative support. You can see the price kind of hung out around there. But now that we've lost that, we can expect that to be a resistance level moving forward. So the price were to come back up, I would expect to see more resistance at 46, then obviously 48 as a result of breaking that if we were to. And then realistically too, to the downside, we shouldn't experience much more downside today, but there is potential tomorrow and moving forward that this could continue downwards. Now again, this correction, when you think about it from top to bottom, that is pretty much an 8% correction in the last 36 hours is a rough estimate. That is a decent amount of retracement. Is it enough to kind of make up for this increase here that took place over the 2-week period or so of 30%? Well, I don't think we're going to see that full entire amount corrected. I do think that we should be able to experience between 40 and 42,200 hold as a strong support area if we were to lose 43. Okay, so again, there's a lot of ifs right now, but generally speaking, this channel here between just say 41.5 and 43,000 should hold, and that should be the bottom in the immediate future, based on this being a previous resistance level as well as Fibonacci retracement kind of telling us it's rare, or I would say more so less common, not rare because crypto has a tendency of doing some pretty crazy stuff. It's less common for the price to come down based on Fibonacci retracement levels lower than 0.5 and or 0.382. I think we're going to probably see something happen here where the price should essentially be able to bounce off one of these two areas if it were to come down that low in the first place. And that's pending we continue to the downside here soon. Generally speaking, the last 24, 48 hours is telling us it wants to continue to the downside. We can also see that it's kind of hitting at that exhaustive state as well. And I think that it would probably be more likely than not to see a slight recovery to potentially come up and test 48,000 again. I feel like that's more in the cards than it is to see the price come down much further. Again, there's still room for down play, but we still have the 50-day SMA holding on the 1-day chart. 4-hour time frame, we have a bounce off of 30 on the RSI essentially. So we've got some things that are kind of in place telling us that we're overextended for the moment. What you want to do with that is up to you, but I feel as if we'll probably see somewhat of a bounce, a little bit of a push back to 46, and then potentially another leg down again to maybe the 42 range. And then from there, build a solid foundation of volume here, essentially, somewhere in the range of, once again, right around 41.5 to about 43,000. There's just kind of a support range that we have there for the moment that I think should hold if we do lose 43. Okay. So again, that's kind of where we're at there. I still don't feel like this is dire straits. This is pretty normal, pretty standard stuff. Yes, it kind of sucks that we had some of our positions stopped out yesterday, but that's just kind of the nature of it. That's how it goes, and you kind of got to learn to recover from your losses and not just jump right back in and get completely fearless. Now, granted, after taking a look at this, I feel like we'll probably see a little bit of recovery, and to take a quick position, I think might be advantageous. But for lack of better terms, we've got to acknowledge the big picture and always look at both sides, because we are on this ascending channel even still. Yes, this most recent breakout, so to speak, is breaking down. I don't think it's going to break down that much further, just based on the way that things should work in crypto. Okay, so again, that's just kind of where we're at there. Hopefully you found benefit, and I made sense of everything that I explained here today. I try to make sure that you understand thoroughly my thought process in going into this, because you got to take emotion out of the equation. I know it's simple and easy to say, totally get that, but there's no point in taking a side of I'm a bull, I'm a bear. That's kind of foolhardy in my personal opinion. You should be willing to anticipate and appreciate both sides. Okay, and it's this he said, she said stuff doesn't really even make any sense at all, and I can tell you, you're going to be much better off not getting stuck in that, and actually looking abstractly at the data and understanding that, hey, we could be going down. It is realistic for this to happen, but it's also very realistic to turn right back around too. So try not to take a stance and just be one of those persons. So just, again, friendly advice to whomever's listening. We all gotta live and grow on this planet, and it's so much easier to do that if you take emotion out of the equation, especially if you're communicating with other people about there's no right or wrong opinion, truth be told. This is like religion and politics. There's just no way around it. Anyways, enough about that. I hope you understand what I mean by that. I just want you to not get wrecked, of course. So look at all angles before taking a side, and I recommend just not even taking a side in general if you possibly can. But obviously we need to know where we're going, and I don't think we're in dire straits by any means. This is very standard, very normal. It actually will allow for us to leg up a lot stronger with this correction now, instead of building an impartial foundation here of volume. We're getting more volume in this lower price point, allowing more investing at that level that allows for the price to continue higher, faster later. So it's really not a bad deal to have the price kind of correct itself right now. But I know it does suck when all of our altcoins just hit the reset button, right? 10%, 15% down, what the hell? What's the deal? Well, okay, you look at Bitcoin, you can see why. Anyways, thanks again, enough rambling. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks again for joining me here. CryptoCache.tech is a site if you want to become a better trader. Look forward to seeing you there. Have a good rest of your day.